Hey, Vortex Garage here, and I thought I'd grab the camera, walk you around a little bit, show you some of the projects that we're working on right now. So again, I'm always slow to get updates up on YouTube, so I figured one way to remedy that is, well, when I'm working on something, if I'm taking a break or if it's the end of the day, I'll grab the camera, spend about 5 minutes, show you what we got brewing here in the shop. So that's what I'm going to do today. It's a Tuesday night, out here in the garage getting a little time in after work. It's getting late and pretty much wrapped up for the day. Kind of tired, running low on steam, so hopefully it doesn't show on the video too much. But anyway, grab the camera and show you something. We got this back here you might have seen in our last Spitfire update video. Let's check it out a little bit. So this is a 1985 Chevy K10 pickup. So of course the K in K10 is for four-wheel drive and the 10 is for the half-ton. This is a custom deluxe, which is pretty much your base model. And of course this one's got a lift kit and some big 35-inch Nitto tires on it. Well, I'll tell you what it's in here for. It's in here, we're doing a little bit of motor work on it. Let's check out what we're doing. So good news is I've got the cameras going as I've been doing some of this. We'll try to get a little bit larger of an update video and show you what we worked on in more detail. But you can check it out. We're doing some motor work. It's in here getting a new intake and carburetor setup put on it. So that's an Edelbrock Performer EPS dual plane manifold, and it's now bolted down, torqued, and all that good stuff. And sitting on top, that's a Summit Racing 600 CFM electric choke carburetor. Now those are actually derivatives of an older Holley design that Summit basically got licensing the build, and they've done a little re-engineering work on it, and they sell it through their catalog in stores. So it'll be interesting to see how that runs on this truck. I've actually never run one of them. So while the intake was off, let me just move the camera around here. Hopefully that doesn't make you dizzy. I'm still getting used to different ways of holding the camera to make updates easier. So while the intake was off, the original one, we went ahead and checked everything out underneath. The good news is the motor is very clean. It's a 350 small block, which I might have mentioned. But one of the reasons that we did that, one of the cylinders had a little bit of a valve tick, and it got a valve adjustment done to it and it went away, and then that tick sort of came back. And what I think is happening, and I'll kind of show you here, these are the retainer bolts that go on the rocker arms. So these bolt to the rocker studs, and you tighten these when you set the initial valve lash on the hydraulic lifters, and then you go through while the engine's running and you can tweak them if you need to. Well, on this particular stock setup with iron heads, it just has kind of like a compressed top to the threads, which might be hard to see on camera, but this is how this actually locks to the stud. So one issue you can have with these is if they're older and they've been adjusted a few times, they can kind of lose their hold and they end up backing off as the engine runs after a little bit. And so what we did, picked up a new set from Comp, nice cheap set, but they're pretty much the identical, same design, but they're a new fresh set, and we popped those on. Okay, so once we popped those on, we went ahead and did the initial valve adjustment. Of course, actually, I'm skipping a step. Before we did the initial valve adjustment, I pulled all the lifters out, pulled the push rods out, inspected the push rods to make sure none of them were bent, none of them were damaged, they all look great. Same with the lifters. I popped all the hydraulic lifters out one by one, checked to make sure that none of them were damaged, like had concave flats on the bottom. None of the hydraulic mechanisms seemed messed up. None of the circlips on the top were missing or anything weird like that. Everything looked good. So we put it all back together, set the initial base valve lash on it. So how you do that, we covered that a little more on the detailed video, but basically hydraulic lifter, what you want to do on a Chevy small block is take your push rod, you kind of move it up and down when it's loose. You want to go ahead and tighten the bolt on the rocker stud until you have zero lash, which means you can't lift that push rod up or down anymore. Of course, not pushing the plunger on the hydraulic lifter, but basically it doesn't have any up and down movement, but you can still turn it. It turns nice and easy, but no up and down movement. And that's zero lash. Once you get to that, you do another quarter turn. So if you ever heard the phrase quarter turn past zero lash, that's the key for getting the base valve adjustment on a small block Chevy with hydraulic lifters. At least hydraulic flat top, but it might be different for rollers. So at any rate, we got all that back together, got everything set just right. There's a couple more steps to that, so you have to look at a lot of good detail on how to do that by moving the engine. And got cylinder 1 at top dead center and got our distributor reinstalled and set up. So it's ready for initial fire up. And got the valve covers back on. So the carb is sitting on top, but it's not mounted yet. And one of the reasons is, and I would say is maybe a little bit of a gripe with buying parts, but really not, because for the carburetor, for instance, I need to get the right linkage to get it hooked up right. This has a 700R4, so I got to make sure I get the right linkage for that, which is very important for that TV cable for a 700R4. And same with the throttle connector. So that's the stock setup right there, which looks a little hacked. So I'm getting new stuff, and I didn't order the right one. So I'm waiting for a couple days until I get the next one in, and then we'll be able to get the linkage on the carburetor set up correctly. As you can see, I've just got the coolant neck sitting here, so I got to get that bolted on and done. Same here, the heater hose outlet, which hopefully you can see. Got to get that put on. But I've got all the plugs in. This is just a bolt for the alternator bracket, which has to get reinstalled. So, you know, there's a lot of little stuff I still got to do to get this wrapped up, get this job taken care of. But I mentioned a couple gripes. So again, the carburetor, not a big deal that you don't get the linkage, because who knows, you're putting this on a Mopar, you're putting it on a Ford, you're putting it on a Chevy. If you're doing a Chevy, a 700R4, what trans you run in, you know, there's a lot of variables, so they can't really toss just some universal throttle bracket in there. But it's the manifold, really. So you go buy a manifold, and I'll tell you what you get in the box. You get some instructions, but you also get all these. You get ads. Here, buy this, buy that. Get this while you're at it. Here, get this. But you know what you don't get? I'm not too surprised that you don't get intake gaskets, all right? No big deal. Some people like to choose what they get. But you got all these open ports on here that you need to cap off. And pretty much, you're going to cap at least one of them. Well, you got to buy these plugs separately. And these are just NPT pipe plug fittings, so you can go buy them at the hardware store or whatnot. Or you can buy them as a little kit, and it's like another 10 bucks to get those. So you buy the intake, you need another 10 bucks to get the right plugs, and then you got to get the gaskets. They're another, you know, 10 to 20. So, you know, you got to end up getting a couple more things. And it's just silly gripe, and it doesn't really bother me that much, but, you know, sometimes you wish that you'd open up a box and it would have all that little stuff in there and you'd be able to bolt it on. It's kind of like when you go buy a TV and then you got to go buy an HDMI cable or something like that, which isn't a big deal. You hit up Amazon, you get something nice and cheap. But so we got everything we need, but let me show you what we did get. So I guess that's a bit of a gripe, and it's not really Summit's fault, but this is the universal bracket that I ordered, and it's not really what I want to use, so we're going to probably send that one back. I did get the kind of geometry adjuster for the 700R4, which I need, and when I opened up the carb, the book actually tells you precisely what throttle cable you need to get with a Chevy with a 700R4, and it wasn't the one I ordered. So we went ahead and placed an order and are getting that. So once that comes in, we'll get everything we need to wrap this job up. But I've got a couple more things I can do in the meantime, which will get solidified and done. And oh, you probably saw some stuff sitting on the table. We're going to do a full brake job while we're at it on this truck. So I got wheel cylinders for the back, brake shoes for the rear drums, brake pads, and a set of calipers that we'll put on, and we'll do a full brake bleed, make sure it's got good working brakes on it, which is important, especially with those big tires. I've also got, sorry, trying to not make you dizzy, a box of old parts. And one thing that never got installed on this that came with it, we're going to put on a set of worn hubs, and then we're going to do a full bearing job on it as well. So, twist you around again. We'll go ahead and do all the front bearings, seals, and new hubs and all that, new brakes. Basically make sure the suspension's running good on it. And that should do it. That's pretty much what we're going to be working on. Get this thing done and out of here, and then we can focus on some other stuff. Let me show you a few other things that we got going on. All right, so of course we got our Spitfire over here, which is pretty much the same it was since the last update. But down here we had a whole bunch of hydraulic hoses. So you probably remember our long tractor, which does run now. But as soon as I got it running, it blew out the old nasty hoses. I just blew one of them out on the front boom assembly. So I got that one replaced, but they're, you know, I knew they were bad and I knew they were going to blow out. So rather than fuss with it, I went ahead and pulled all of them off, went down to my local cauliflower, which is a cool little store that you can take hydraulic hoses and they custom make them. And I just took them all down and said, hey, make these up for me. And they did. Real quick, got them all taken care of. Good price on them, really. And, you know, again, that thing, 30 years old, who knows how old those hoses were. They were all dry rotted and nasty. I don't want to deal with them just blowing out and losing pressure. And so I got a whole new set. We're going to put these on, and then that tractor should be in pretty good shape. Everything's working. The front boom works, the rear hydraulic lift, it starts up, it moves. So we should be pretty good. The only thing I do need to do is eventually get new hoses made for the hydrostatic steering, which needs a little bit of help. Anyway, like I said, we'll get those other hoses taken care of at some point, but first things first, we'll get these new hydraulic hoses put on. So again, that's pretty much it, except for one thing. We did get our Spitfire poster mounted, got it put in a frame and hung up on the wall here. So it's overlooking our Spitfire project, and I think that's really cool, and it looks awesome up there. So I'm totally psyched about that. So anyway, that's pretty much the update of what we've been working on. So I'll try to do these from time to time, show you some things here or there, and keep some updates flowing in. So I hope you enjoy them. And again, we'll keep you updated on our progress here on the K10. We'll keep you updated on our Spitfire project, our long tractor, and all the other bits and pieces we have coming through the shop here. So, well, have a good one, and we'll do another video soon.